What's up everyone, this is Alan Paris aka C.O.R.N Lucky, and today I'm bringing you another tutorial on Zack, a character in Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate. Starting out here, I'm going to go over a few of Zack's pokes. He actually has more than a few. He has like 5 good ones. That's his 10 frame jab, 11 frame mid, 13 frame low jab, 12 frame kick. As you see there in the neutral game, it stuns on normal hit, putting him at +8, and his 6K. Another kick that comes out at 12 frames and puts him at +8 in the neutral game. Zack is a balanced character for defense and offense. Defensively, he's fairly evasive with his lower duck stance. This here avoids highs. So if you start attacking high or some mids that have a high hitbox and it's not low enough, he'll go under it, and anything that he does out of here punch wise is a crush. So this is a crush and another crush following up back behind it. So he's evasive there, and he also has his back sway here. So for characters that are kind of leaning on the buttons and being jab heavy against him, if he applies this just once, at that point in time characters are now whiffing and he comes out of it and starts jabbing out of it, they're gonna get counter blown every single time. And then as well as some of his pokes that I just went over, with an 11 frame mid, 10 frame jab, 13 frame low, and these other pokes coming out at 12 frames, he can pretty much counter poke in between characters when they're going about free canceling, and you notice it for the most part. As far as when a character free canceled, he's fairly quick at counter poking players, and that's what he can do defensively. When he's on the offense, his mix-up game is over the top, and I'll get to that when I start talking about his mix-up. But where you would want to keep Zack as far as his desired range is up close, a monster, and at a mid-range, he's fairly strong at a mid-range as well. Zack at a long range, he's okay, but at the same time he's not. He has a fairly decent keep out game, just because players can't rush in and do whatever it is that they want. Quite a few of his poking attacks, or some of his attacks, have a decent hitbox on them, like his 3K. You can stop oncoming nonsense running up into you. His 7K, it's a crush move, and if players are running in doing highs or running up trying to throw you, this works wonders. Before just throwing this out as far as playing a keep out game with players, I'd advise you to read exactly how they're rushing you down. He does have options coming from this, so they do have to worry about that. But this initially, it crushes. As you see here, it's a jumping attack, so it's going to evade lows. So any character that's running at you with a low, you're gonna jump right over it, and then doing any one of his follow-ups, you're gonna kick them for it. His 44K does the spinning high, and all of this stuff, pretty much you're gonna land them on counter hit from players running up into you. So all of this stuff is going to stun on counter hit to allow him to start up his mix-up game. Punch kick, kick itself, and those are just to name a few attacks that he can apply as far as keeping players out from a distance. Where he's not okay at is when you allow an opponent to get the health lead on you, and then you have to rush in with him. That's when he becomes very bad, trying to rush in from a long range. He has like a setup or two that he can do to try to bait players to run up into him. This is one of them. His 9 PP into 2K, his 9 PP into a punch again. As far as highs go, or his 9 PP into 4P from back turn. So, but even still, like, that stuff gets worn out, and players are going to simply space correctly and then counterblow you for whiffing things. But that's pretty much one of the options that Zack has as far as baiting players to run up into him. He may have another one, but outside of that, he's not all that good when he has to actually rush players down. So although you can play him at the back of the screen and he has a fairly decent keep out game, if you're not doing everything that you need to be doing on your part and you don't have the health lead and time isn't on your side and you actually have to rush down with him, you're going to run into a huge problem, especially when you're playing against a character that has a fairly decent keep out or a better keep out game than he does. And that's playing Zack at a long range. So you can, but at the same time, you need to be extremely conscious of what's going on in the fight for you to actually put him at the back of the screen if you decide to do that. Still, your best results playing with Zack are going to come from a mid-range to close range, just because of his offense that he's able to start once he lands a counter hit. Two of the key components to Zack's mix-up game as far as the neutral game and stun game is making a good use of his sway, which is 4P, not 44P. I believe I said 44P earlier. It's just 4P, or 2 punch plus kick as far as playing defensively in a neutral game and being a part of his mix-up game, because he can attack from it and he can throw from it. So players have to deal with his ambiguous mix-up game once he does land an attack on you and he starts going into his sway stance and attacking from it. If Zack chooses to stun launch, he's fairly good there. 74 points of damage, that's not bad, but he can be even better if you choose to apply his mix-up game really thick and playing in the stun game. So, and there I just did a bunch of basic things as far as a series of jabs and mid punches, and with that alone he put 111 points of damage on the screen, and that's just from him playing in a neutral game, and not playing him in a neutral game, that's from him playing in the stun game, I'm sorry. As far as the things that he can do, as good as his stun launch can be, and him playing in a neutral game, he doesn't make a good use of sit down stuns and bounds, and that's a really it's a really big problem if you don't mix up properly with him, just because sit down stuns and bounds, it gives characters guaranteed launchers, or at least some type of pressure that they can put on players. And since he doesn't make a really good use of that, like that there in the neutral game, that's it's a sit down stun, but as you see on Counter-Strike, it's a knockdown. He really doesn't get too much from it, and that's just one of his sit down stun moves that he has. And if you can see this here, like, you can tell that's coming from a mile away. It doesn't track. You can sidestep it. You can hold it. You pretty much do whatever it is that you want to do as far as a defender goes, defending against one of his defending against his 33k P. So that's one of the downsides to his offense, as good as a mix-up character that he is and how quickly he can get to damage. He has to pretty much play in the stun game to get all of it, and not really have a sufficient way of getting to sit down stuns or bounds to really round out his offense. Another quick note as far as for Zack players, you beginning out, although it's extremely unorthodox for you to constantly throw the move out, something that Team Ninja has done as far as stance transitioning characters, they allow them to be at plus now, so players can't really throw out attacks when certain characters have stance transitions and they go into them. Like this here can turn to be a stance transition. As you see, he's -8 there, but if you go into it and you hold down 2, you'll go into his lower duck stance from it, and as you see, it put him at plus 11 there, and there's nothing that any character can do to him when he's at plus 11 from this. So they either have to deal with a throw coming out of that or deal with his attacks coming out of it. So if you're catching players slipping and they allow you to put this on their block, you can go to work immediately, because they can't whack a button, and they have to properly read whatever it is that you're going to do out of it. That pretty much sums it up about Zack. As much as I want to cover for beginners, not to give you guys too much. Something that you'll have to take note of, especially if you're starting out and you want to play Zack. Zack will take some time to open up completely, just because there's so much he can do as far as with his stances and him going in and out of them. And again, I just showed a few things, him being played on a basic level, but for you to completely open him up and keep him flowing consistently, you'll have to know how to transition him in and out of his stances to play him efficiently. So he's not really beginner friendly, but if you want to start out as him, I don't want that to turn you away. Just sit down, take your time with him, and at the end of the day, Zack is a pretty good character, just because of his mix-up game, whether it be in the neutral game and or once he lands a counter hit. But you do have to deal with him not having too many ways of getting to guaranteed damage. So that's when it really comes on you as a player to know this and realize to have a really good healthy mix-up, and then knowing how to react and when to react to players. So some of Zack's pros and cons is that pros, his speed. His speed allows you to counter poke fluently and consistently in between players, and them free canceling and them not really paying attention to how they're free canceling, as far as letting you as a Zack player know that, hey, you just free canceled, and then now I'm going to poke in between it, because all of his pokes are fairly quick and all of them start some type of stun. And going over his mix-up game, like, that's what you want, which is another one of his pros. Is his mix-up game is crazy, and his damage output coming from it. And he's fairly evasive with his back sway stance, getting him out of the trouble of jab heavy players that aren't checking as far as, hey, I'm jabbing this dude too much, because he can sway out of it, and using his lower sway, his 2P punch kick, will allow him to avoid and crush highs once he goes down into it. Now some of his cons is that playing at a long range, as I mentioned before, he can't rushing down. He's not all that good at doing it. So you have to be aware of what's going in the fight, so you don't dig yourself in a hole from putting him at the back of the screen so much. And another one of his big faults is that he's extremely reliant on the stun game, and by him doing that, it gives players, you know, more chances than any other characters to actually, you know, hold and get out of his stuff, or for the most part parry him, which, you know, it puts him in a really bad position. And that's about it. Again, thank you guys for watching. I'll take any feedback that you have, and I'm down to make these better than what I have been doing. I appreciate the time that you do sit here to hear me talk about these characters, and I hope you have a good time with Zack, and I'll catch you guys later.